morning, everybody. My name is John Kosner, and I was formerly head of digital and print media at ESPN. As one of our panelists, Michael Anderson of Hashleets, would say, I worked on the phase of the internet that was the democratization of information. Now, Michael and our other panelists are working on the democratization of value in sports. You heard earlier from Lou Kerner at Crypto Oracle that our opportunity here is all about community. So in sports, that community, that value starts with NFTs. So let's hear from our panel of entrepreneurs, and we're going to start off with a 2-minute drill. First is Thomas Emmanuel from Crypto Beyond Currency.
So thank you for the introduction, John. Hello, everyone. So my background has been in sports technology. I developed the initial IP around barcoded ticketing, delivered the first barcoded ticket back in 2003. So before there were smartphones, it was still a green screen situation. And subsequently, I worked with the Detroit Red Wings, developed their first iPhone application, deployed technology for fan engagement within the stadium. And with Blockside, we've been really focused on how do we curate a fan experience around individual athletes, and NFTs are really at the core of that transaction. And so we see NFTs having integrated or inherent economic functions, as well as rights management and other things become very much easier. And so the NFT to us becomes a point of access or a distribution point for content and other engagements that we'll get into.
Okay. So Michael Anderson from Hashleets.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Anderson. My background, I played sports all growing up. I played football in college and grew up in a sports household. So sports and the culture around sports has always been a really important component of my life. About a year ago, we formed Hashleets to go out and solve the problem of what is a digital collectible in the sports world. We are licensed now by the NFLPA, the Players Association, to build digital tokens for NFL athletes. This past NFL season, we launched the first digital collectible platform used in real money gaming. What we do is we sell tokens related to athletes every year. Those tokens can be collected, they can be bought and sold on a secondary marketplace, and then they can be used in real money gaming, somewhat akin to fantasy sports. So we're working on new features and new capabilities for this upcoming season, and we're really excited about non-fungible tokens and how they can be enabled in the sports world.
And finally, Nicolas Julia from SoRare.
Hello everyone, so I'm the founder of SoRare. I have been a blockchain entrepreneur for a couple of years, and I decided to start SoRare last year with the mission to bring crypto to mainstream users and the conviction that NFTs in particular will drive this adoption, mainly because you can have an emotional connection with these crypto assets that's much more difficult to achieve with cryptocurrencies. And so basically what we are building is a platform where you can collect and play with officially branded soccer NFTs. So today we have more than 25 clubs on the platform. We are opening the waitlist for the beta today, and we'll start rolling out the beta phase beginning of March. So thanks for having us.
So just going through with you guys, how is it that NFTs are going to enhance the sports fans' experience? Who wants to go first?
I'll take a stab. So one of the biggest, most ingrained aspects of sports culture is the aspect of collectability. The collection of scarce assets, physical assets, whether it be a hat, a jersey, a trading card, these represent totems that relate to players and teams, but also relate to experiences and memories of the sports environments themselves. And our view is that while physical collectibles usually start off in mint condition. You know, the trading card was issued in mint condition and maybe you've kept it there. It potentially degrades over time. What non-fungible tokens and digital collectibles enable are the issuance of something that's basic to begin with, but then over time accrue value based on the experience, the gameplay, or the applications that they can be used in. And this is where I think the sports world is perfect, because you have this mending of the digital world where you have these things on a phone or maybe in an application, but then you also have the physical world where you're at an event, you're going to a game, you're a fan, maybe even watching it on TV with other people. And so there's so many instances in the physical world to start to add new capabilities or attributes to these tokens that a digital collectible has that a physical collectible just can't have.
So I like the idea of collectibles and potentially the extended utility within games and ways that they can take the engagement from the physical game into these more virtual worlds. But I feel that NFTs specifically help to create clarity around who's participating in this space. You know, what kind of fan are you? Are you more of an avid fan? You know, what athletes are you fans of on a particular team? And being able to have the identification so that the teams and the athletes know who they're talking to and can reward people accordingly. So I'm really excited about badges and provable fandom.
Yeah, so same. I first, everything. I think everything starts with the collectible experience. That's totally new. Today, when you buy a digital item in FIFA or whatever sports game, you don't really own it because you can only use it in a closed ecosystem. You cannot trade it as well. You cannot cash out with your item. So that's something I think we are working on all here. That's totally new. On top of course the digital scarcity that could bring some value to these items. And I think that the second totally new stuff that will bring these NFTs are the engagement, the direct engagement with fans, between fans and players, clubs and leagues. Yeah, I think that will bring a lot of customized content and interactions to fans.
So Nicolas and everyone, talk a little bit more about that. For me, one of the single most exciting things is the interaction and relationships that can be developed now between players and their fans, where they can know each other better.
Yeah, to give an example, one of my friends plays for the Houston Texans, and he says, I don't just want to send out a tweet or an Instagram post anymore to all the people that follow me. I want to be able to have a live, curated conversation with my top fans. I want to be able to say, buy my Hashleads token, I'm doing a live Q&A tonight, and you have to have the token to get access to it. And I think you touched on this a little bit earlier. These non-fungible tokens, as they relate to players or teams, are points of access. You're given access to do something, maybe in the physical world or in the digital world, that you wouldn't necessarily be able to have unless you had that token.
Yeah, and I feel that, so, you know, along with that token giving access, it also becomes a distribution point. and I see distribution of content. I know, so at Blockside, we have what we call the player portal. And when you have the NFT token, the player portal becomes this window of engagement. And based on your level of fandom or as some kind of reward or incentive, it'll actually unlock where you can engage directly with the athlete via text or chatting. But the athlete themselves can also distribute content, whether it has to do with their workout or a workout routine, or things that the fan may be interested in. It can curate that content specifically for that fan from the athlete.
Thomas, you guys also are pioneering some really interesting uses of augmented reality as part of your experience. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So we see AR as a great way to engage through enhanced media around NFTs. And so, for instance, when you have the token for the athlete, we have enhanced media where there's an avatar for that athlete as well. And so now, if you were to, let's say, go to a game and that player was active while you were there, as that player is scoring points and having statistics, the avatar will actually develop. So whether they get a new shoe or a new jersey or some kind of new skill. When I go and I take that same avatar and put him back into an esports game, all of a sudden the gameplay has changed as a result of that. So we see AR as a good engagement media for kind of bridging that digital experience with the real world. So.
In the U.S., we've just seen the legalization of sports gambling on a state-by-state basis. Nicolas, this has been the norm in Europe. How much do you think gambling is going to begin to drive NFT, gambling or gaming in some form?
Yeah, I think first that the gaming, I mean the usage aspect of the NFT will bring this asset class to mainstream users. So by gaming, I mean games where you can earn prizes and monetary prizes. So that's something that's very important, and fantasy games in particular could be one of the main drivers. So that's what we are doing. So a game where you can very easily compose your team with the NFTs you own and earn rewards. So legendary NFTs, for instance, or cryptocurrencies, based on the real world performances of the players on the pitch.
I can touch on this from maybe the U.S. perspective. I think sports gambling, as John mentioned, is going to be something that I think pervades the entire sports industry over the next 10 years. It's going to take a while for states to define their own regulations, but there are 100 million people that play some form of fantasy sports every single year in the United States. But what I think is really interesting is there's no casual game experience that involves money right now. And one of the apps that sort of burst onto the scene in the last 2 years is HQ Trivia. And that's a casual game experience where there's a small amount of money. You're not taking home a $100,000 check from FanDuel or DraftKings, but you're winning $10 if you answer all 12 questions right. That's a casual game experience where there's a little bit of money involved that makes it just a little bit more interesting. And our perspective at Hashleets is that's the type of game experience, that's the type of casual game experience that we want to promote, where it's fun and engaging and maybe there's some monetary value that's transferred. But eventually, when the sports gambling regulations become real in the United States, we're going to be able to open up new types of gameplay where maybe you're betting your token on who's going to, whether or not Steph Curry is going to make the three-pointer next or whether it's going to be Kevin Durant. And that type of prop-based casual game experience, I think, is where the real money gaming industry in the United States starts to move.
Okay, so for you guys, a big question comes up. Why are you utilizing blockchain? What's unique about that approach? What really does that facilitate?
Yeah, first of all, digital scarcity. The web, as it is built, don't enable that. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is liquidity, the ability to trade your asset as you want on different marketplaces, being Rarebits, OpenSea, whatever. The third one is portability, the fact that you can port your item to different games, different applications, and third-party developers can build experiences without taking the platform risk that they are taking today when they are building on Facebook or whatever. And the fourth point, which is maybe a bit more difficult to grab for mainstream users, is the true ownership. So the fact that you really own this item and that it's not linked to the company that issue it. You own it forever. So these are the 4 main points why we believe that the technology is very important for what we are doing.
Yeah, so for us, we look at it as portability as being a very key component, as well as transparency. You know, we look at, right now it's more of a hybrid where you have the NFT, you have metadata that corresponds to that, and you store some of the information that's more immutable on the blockchain. So as other developers and can build experiences around the same set of assets, there's an aspect that can be changed and is definable at the application level, where some things are hard-coded at a blockchain level, so people know that there is a quality or an attribute that isn't going to change, which leads to more of the permanence and you know, being able to own something and evolve and grow it over, you know, longer periods of time.
So I would fully agree with all of those points. And portability for us, we call it interoperability. The main benefit here is what you used to have to do is develop a developer ecosystem, have an open API standard, have terms and conditions for everyone to develop on your platform. But now ERC 721 becomes that protocol. And it's transferable, it's portable. But one of the things, and maybe to take a different stance here, one of the things that I think we find very difficult with blockchain, especially as it relates to sports, is that we are all inherently in a licensing business. We're licensing the content either from the player, the team, the league, the Players Association, and there are no rules as to what happens with the transferability or the portability of that content. So this is something that we're having to educate our counterparts at the Players Associations or the teams or the leagues on what this means, because just because a logo is attached to a non-fungible token on Hashfleets doesn't mean that it's going to be a logo on another application, because they're actually not licensed by the NFL to do what we're doing. So there are still a lot of inherent problems with this model, and I think blockchain will get there and we'll get the portability that we all seek, but educating some of our counterparts on this is a really big problem.
So what do you see as the kinds of things that are going to help us break through here? There's so much potential, like just this morning alone has opened up so many thoughts of other possibilities. What do you think is going to help make NFTs and sports more mainstream?
So I'll touch on that. I think that it comes down to sports, but I think that it also comes down to fan engagement and engagement in general. And so we're, at Crypto Beyond Currency, this is kind of what we're focusing on is fan engagement within sports and otherwise. And so we're working on engagement for Good Morning America's summer concert series happening in Central Park. And their biggest challenge is engagement. And how do you take somebody who may be interested in that artist that is going to attend this event and have them come back to another one? But I think, for instance, when you have this audience, whether it's I'll use the Good Morning America concert series as an example, but people have to get down there at 6 a.m. and wait for 2 hours, before the concert actually happens. So what if you have an NFT because you, as a ticket, let's say, and then while people are there, somebody's selected and they can come up on stage during the last show, they can meet the artist, they can maybe appear on Good Morning America. So to me, it's ultimately how can you give fans more access and provide things that create more meaningful experiences and ultimately that strengthen the relationship between them and the athlete or the team.
And in this case, also allow GMA to know who their customer is, which is a major factor in sports. The teams don't know who's coming through the gates. Real Madrid doesn't know who their hundreds of millions of fans are. So you can get to a much more granular level that way.
Yeah, fully agree with this point. I think that the three main points to get to mainstream adoption, the first one is UX. How you can buy those NFTs very easily with credit card. Like today, the main projects it could be difficult to get them. So solving some UX problems. The second one is official licenses. Once you get the main football or soccer clubs onto the game, it changes everything because they already have a brand and millions of fans around the world. The third one is competitive gameplay, like being a casual game or whatever, but something that the fan enjoy to do, of course, and building that usage value on top of the collectible value of these NFTs.
Okay, so one last thought. We start with Michael.
One last thought. Well, I think to riff off what these guys were just saying, sports is some of the best and most well-known IP in the world. My one last thought is I hope that sports and sports collectibles, digital collectibles, are something in 2019 that actually bring about a massive adoption in NFTs.
And so I would say that the end consumer, the regular person, doesn't really care about what technology is being used. So I would say the technology needs to take more of a backseat, and the overall user experience and the value or even the dopamine hit that they get through using the app is really, I think, what is going to drive that.
Yeah, I believe that sports and NFT could be the driver of the next wave of adoption, because of the league are very interested as well on that, because that's a new revenue stream for them. That's a revenue stream where they can collect royalties on the secondary market, which is something that's totally new for them. They're interested on that because there's huge crypto adoption in Asia, in the US, and these are new markets, at least for soccer, that they are very interested in. And that's a way to better know their fans, who they are, and where they are. So for these reasons, we get like huge interest from leagues, and we believe that they will help a lot with mainstream adoption.
So in sports, when you see 000, it's time to go. Thank you.